Hello people, welcome back to my channel. My name is Simbala Dizio, and today I want to talk about, I'm taking notes now on my topics. The unhealed paternal influence is the topic for today. So before I get into it, I am wearing a robe, I'm wearing a beanie, I'm in more chill mode today. This topic came up because of just emotional stuff that I've been going through this last week, and so these things are coming up for me. So I haven't continued sharing my story, awakening into the void, because other things have been coming up, and I've just been really sinking into the kind of collective uncertain energy and the energy of almost doom. Not necessarily that the world is going to end, but just this uncertain, we don't know what's to come around the corner. So I definitely sunk into that energy in this last week. And I'm generally a very optimistic and solution-minded person, or how do I say, just proactive-minded. Especially when I start to feel down or start to feel depressed in any way, I really like to proactively address these things and do something like tapping. If you've seen one of my videos where I talk about tapping, emotional freedom technique, it's one of the modules that I use to work through feelings like depression or mental disorders like depression, or anxiety is one of the worst ones that I've had to battle over the years. With no diagnosis from a doctor or a psychotherapist, but just through my own research and symptoms, especially for panic attacks and just symptoms of anxiety, and not just symptoms, but also I forget what the term is called, but things that can happen to you as a result from having anxiety, like hair loss. So I guess that's a symptom of anxiety, but I feel like it's a symptom on top of the symptoms of anxiety. So yeah, to begin to dive into this topic, I've definitely kind of been sinking into the hopelessness. I am not around people, so the social interactions that I do have are mostly primarily online, and so there's no physical touch of any kind, and I know a lot of people are, experiencing this as well. And while some of us are quite used to being secluded or being internet bound most of the time, but to spend such a period of time without human interaction, it can really do numbers on our mental health. So that has been something that has weighed on me, and I was feeling definitely just pulled down energetically, and then this last week I found out of the passing of a dear friend of mine's father, and this man, this shaman, this teacher, this brilliant soul has passed on. His name is Baba Kalindi Iyi, and he is a psychedelic aficionado, mushroom master. He's a martial arts master as well. He was security for Wesley Snipes, among other celebrities at one point in time. I believe Aaliyah as well, and others. But he's a well-renowned martial artist and psychonaut. But more than just a psychonaut, like he really has studied the quantum field through psychedelics and specifically through mushrooms, and learning the correlations of culture through the mushroom and in Africa, and just all kinds of stuff. I'm probably not putting my words together very well right now, but just a very well respected man all over the globe. And he just passed away. And interestingly enough, I also lost my father, and it was about next year will mark the 10 years, so in September it will have been 9 years since his passing. And this man, Baba Kalindi, who just passed away, he was very reminiscent of my father in a lot of ways. And I did get to spend a little bit of time with him and follow some of his teachings, and the way I came across him was very serendipitously through, ironically, a Christian radio show. And I found him and started following him, and then met him at his psychedelic conference a couple years ago, and learned a lot. I developed a relationship with his son, and learned a lot with him and about martial arts, and we did spend a short period of time together, but it was still a very valuable time. And so that loss was pretty heavy. And no, he may not be my father, but he has a very strong fatherly presence, not just for his children, but for his entire community. And a lot of people that I respect him dearly, and I, including me. And being that he was so reminiscent of my father, it brought back memories of the loss of my father, which was this September 9 years ago. And lately I've been having very positive, memories of my dad, and just trying to maintain the good memories of him, of everybody in my life. Just again, and in some ways it's good to do that, but then in other ways it's like, okay, I'm looking at the world through rose-colored glasses, and I'm avoiding stuff that still needs to be processed, stuff that still needs to be looked at, stuff that I still need to let go. So these feelings have been coming up about my dad, and it's just, and then my relationships with men on top of that. So, and then it dredged up this emotions about narcissistic abuse and or torment. This is a topic that is brought up quite often these days, because there's a lot of people that are awakening to the fact that they are in relationships or in relating to people who are toxic, whether it be their boss, their mom, their brother, their sister, their partner, their kids sometimes, so this has been coming up for me, and for me it just comes in these waves, you know, like, and it's because there's still stuff that hasn't been healed. So it's like I'll be on this high, and then all of a sudden I'll sink back low into the abyss, into the void, or what it feels like, the void sometimes, you know. For me, depression is it's tough because it's like I can't see my way out. It's like I'm in a thick darkness. It's not just darkness, but it's a thick darkness. And it's heavy, and I know I need to move, and I know I need to get up, and I know I need to just do something, and I just can't do it. So, excuse me, sorry. So this is all of what was going on this week, and sorry, I should clear my throat before I start my videos. But so yes, the narcissistic abuse. I will use a different term for this, actually. Instead of saying narcissistic abuse, I will say unconscious projections. And unconscious projections, reactions, etc. Even though I've observed and studied a lot about like narcissistic abuse, like I want to kind of change the terms that I use around that, because while there are some people who are conscious of the way they're abusing others and getting pleasure out of that, I find that a lot of people are not consciously trying to hurt others or torture others. But while there are some who do that, you know, I feel like a lot of us, even if we are trying to hurt others, it comes from a place of pain, and there's always a why, there's always a reason why, you know. So in order for us to heal, if we're products, you know, or if we're victims of abuse, or if we've been abused at one point or another, in order to find like forgiveness for our abuser, for ourselves obviously, but to bring the situation into neutrality, we, obviously have to let go, but, wow. I just lost my my train of thought, but hopefully I'll get it back. It's really hard. This is a challenge, expressing my feelings, sharing them outwardly, expressing my process, sharing that outwardly, recording a video. I'm in a robe, like I've been down, I've been kind of down in that depressive state for a while, so it's, you know, it's taken me a lot to pull myself up and you know, do this and record. So pardon me for my loss of my train of thought. I'm doing my best, and hopefully that will loop back around. But here it is. So yes, I want to steer away from using terms like narcissist and you know, because I'm not a clinical psychotherapist, psychologist, counselor, any of that. So who am I to use these terms? I'd rather just use, you know, unconscious or whatever term I use in that moment. So I am a product of I would say partially conscious and partially unconscious parenting. So it's like in some aspects my parents were very conscious, but then on the emotional aspect of things I feel like they were very unconscious and underdeveloped in the maturity aspect when it comes to the emotions. And they were products of stress and lack of money or just trying to get by in the 80s and 90s. So for me, growing up, my dad was very strict, very hard. He was scary. He led the family with kind of like in a very threatening way, and just kind of like a prison warden, and like you would hear his jingling keys, and it's just like, oh my God, he's coming around the corner, and you don't know if he's going to be happy or mad or upset, and so that in itself for a child is traumatic. He might not have been able to see from his vantage point how damaging that was for the people around him. It was his way of maintaining control, because I'm sure there was a lot of things he was dealing with internally in which he felt out of control. So this was the one area in his life where he could be in control. So this is how he ran his household, was with fear. And unfortunately, that was passed on to his children, and we are now working through basically learning how to express ourselves and learning how to be okay with our emotions and just a whole lot of other things that a traumatic upbringing like that can be. And it's not like I was, beat to death or anything like that, but just the fear, the threat in itself was enough, and he had his moments, and I'm just bringing this up because that experience like weakened me and weakened my self-confidence, and I feel like in some aspects we experience this on a grand scale. We are not experiencing a police state in an overt manner just yet, but in a sense we are, because there are a lot of things we can't say or do without it being a threat on our lives in some ways, and in some ways we do have like a boot on our neck, and especially if you're a dark-skinned person, so that kind of upbringing is just very toxic, and it's very it just shrinks the confidence of a person, and kind of holds back the growth of their soul or the expansion of that person because it's like this person is the only person, he knows the answers to everything, and he's the say all, be all, do all, and he's God, and this is normal, and this is, so it's like we have no capacity to make up our mind for ourselves, so so that was tough for me, that upbringing, and it led me to following people in poor behavior a lot of times. And I never thought I was being a follower, but as I look back now, I definitely was a follower. Just low self-esteem, no confidence in my ability to think for myself, to trust my emotions, because it's like, it was like don't speak, or your opinion doesn't matter type household, and everyone abided to one person's say so in that household. So yeah, that I wanted to bring this up because, as I'm saying it again, it weakens the soul, it weakens the development of our soul, and our soul expression weakens, and it also, I mean, as a woman, for me, someone who has relations with men, it has definitely caused me to recreate that dynamic. And the first time I experienced that dynamic of someone being overtly controlling, or not even controlling, but just rude or messed up towards me, just like coming at me crazy, like I'm their daughter or something. It was my first boyfriend, and so it was kind of like, oh my God, I don't ever want a man that I'm with to talk to me like my father does, so that was the last of that kind of relationship, was having somebody that reminded me, that's just like rude and or just harsh, and talking to me like I don't know any better, or that I need guidance constantly. It's like a kind of an infantilization. But yeah, it's hard to keep this train of thought. I'm sorry about this. But yeah, the infantilization, that in itself prevents us from being able to trust ourselves. Like, you don't know any better. You're just a child, and so we even if they don't say that, we kind of internalize that, like, and we remain childlike in a lot of ways. We don't grow emotionally because of that. And so after avoiding men that were overtly rude, or just crass and brute, I found myself attracted to men who were very covert manipulators, and covertly would poke and prod at me. And that in itself was a very weakening experience, even further, because I didn't know where it was coming from. I couldn't see it. It wasn't obvious. I'd never experienced torment in such a way, And so it's like I'm attracting that kind of puppeteering in different ways, because my dad, in a sense, was puppeteering, because that was his way to feel like he was in control of his life. And so I would keep interacting with people like that, men specifically, but also friends and other people, So it just became a pattern. And even at one point in my life, at a very weak moment, again, weak in spirit, I found myself agreeing to join this pyramid scheme with complete strangers. I had no idea who these people were. They convinced me to spend like $800 of my tax return money to invest in this, like, protein powder or like vitamin powder stuff. And it was just so interesting because it's like I would have never done that had my confidence been in a more heightened state or in a more stable place. But because at that point in time I was feeling so weak and so battered and lonely, I was vulnerable, I was a target. And each and every time that I've found myself with puppeteering type people, I was in a very vulnerable state. So it's just all ties in together, and basically this is the next step that I will be working on in my personal healing, and just something that I've had to revisit over and over again because it's so deep and it's ancestral to the paternal wound, the divine masculine wound, or the toxic masculine stain on masculinity. So all of this has been coming up, and it's without judgment. It's just observation, and I will be doing a tapping session soon, probably tomorrow actually, with my friend, Chemistry Angelesque. She is a great healer, and she has her own channel on here. I'll try to link it down below. But she and I have been doing the emotional freedom technique for the last 8 years or so, I think. I think it's about 8 years for me. I think she's doing it a little bit longer than me. But she is a trained practitioner, and we do amazing sessions together. We haven't done one for a while. I've just been doing it by myself, but with the tapping, you tap on meridians in your body and talk out your emotions. And what's crazy, it's like through tapping on the meridians, stuff will come out that's not even on the forefront of your mind. So the tapping is really literally releases stuff that you didn't even know was like, oh my God, like wow, that came out, and it releases it from your body, and it's phenomenal. So I will be working on the paternal wound for the next few sessions, and really digging deep with this. And for me, it has a lot to do with like mind control and spiritual weakness, and insecurity, low self-esteem, and just unhealed bond in that space. And as I work on healing that and releasing that block, I feel like it will definitely improve a lot of my relationships with the opposite sex, and give me more compassion and respect for the men in my life. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here and happy to share my healing journey with all of you, and happy to hear about your experiences as well, or read about them if you want to share them at all. Yeah. So thank you for joining me in my comfortable space here. I'm probably going to do more videos like this. I just like the setting a little bit better. But yeah, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I hope you're enjoying my videos. Have an awesome day.